Welcome back. Welcome back. We are now officially under a week until college basketball season is underway, and I am back with a rebranded show. I am Jackson Collier, JC Hoops, and this is the Hardwood Hogs podcast. Over at HawgBeat.com, we've started a podcast network with shows covering the three major sports. We have the Diamond Hogs podcast, the Gridiron Hogs podcast, and now introducing the Hardwood Hogs podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm pleased, humbled, and honored to have the inaugural guest to the Hardwood Hogs podcast on today. He's a great coach, great person. He's Coach Gus Argenal, assistant coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
That's a heck of a start right there. Hopefully I can live up to it, but I'm honored and humbled to be on as well. And it's great to see your face. That means that we're back in hoop season and it's go time here for the Hogs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. So this is essentially just going to function as a season preview episode, first episode of the Hardwood Hogs podcast. Kind of getting information straight from the horse's mouth. Obviously, you're right in the middle of all the action. Kicking things off, what was it like over the summer getting all these new guys in and acclimated?
Well, I think with 11 new players, there's always going to be this adjustment time. So June and July were huge for us, with all those new players, two returning scholarship players in Kamani and Devo, and then Cade and Lawson being walk-ons for us. Like those four guys having to show kind of how we operate, what we do. The six new freshmen, their first time on a college campus, getting used to the daily schedule of weights, lifting, extra shooting, practice, and then their social time along with school, and then our transfer. So it was honestly really exciting for the program. But I think we had to take a step back and kind of slow ourselves down and make sure that we were able to start from the very beginning, in terms of how we, walk onto the court, how we warm up. Every little piece of it had to be retaught, which is never a negative. But for this team especially, we had to start from scratch and make sure that we were dialed in on all the little things that, in March really become the big things, in your preparation, in your focus, your body. That really, starts in June when they get here as a group. So it's been awesome. They're a great group of guys. Now we're here already in November. I can't believe it. But we're ready to go. And again, I think our June and July was really, really beneficial.
So have you ever been involved with such a large roster turnover like this before?
I've been in, when I was a head coach my second year, I had 11 new players. I remember that. But again, I think at this level, no. At the Division I level, for sure, this is the most. Definitely with Coach Musselman, this is, again, the biggest change that we've ever had in a roster. But I would say with Coach, that's something, and everybody's talked about that. He's used to a changing roster, not only, year to year, but when he was a, G League coach or back then CBA coach, it was happening weekly. You're getting new guys called up, called down. So he's used to that. Something that, again, I think he handles rosters as well as anybody. So it definitely is a new feeling for us here at Arkansas and with Coach Musselman at the college level.
And it's not just the turnover, but you added six new freshmen, like you mentioned, five new transfers, and whether they were transfers or high school recruits, they were all pretty highly recruited, high school ranks and through the portal, and wherever they came from, they were all pretty productive. How have the guys managed that sort of aspect of being on a team with so much talent?
I think that's probably one of the biggest things that every program goes through right now is how you're going to manage all these players that have, like you said, have had success, which they wouldn't be here unless they had success. The one thing that we do, just being quite honest with it, is we don't really, hold any punches in terms of the information that's given to them. So we stat everything we do. From the day, JC, if you're a freshman for us, I know you're a good shooter, but we're gonna stat every shot you take from the second you walk on campus in live play, so that we can show you here's where you're at now going into the first, week of games. Here's where you stack up, and then along with your practice habits, what you're doing extra on your own. Obviously, that's on them, but every piece of this is statted so that we have some hard facts, and then also there's the coaching piece of it. How coachable are you? How hard are you practicing every single day? And we even manage that with the load that they exert every single day. We have these little monitors that show kind of you can actually track who's essentially giving the best effort. So we have so many different things. We have 8 graduate assistants that are charting everything they do. 5-on-0 shooting. So there's no, there's nothing left to not be seen or statted, so that we can really give them, hey, here's where you stack up. There's 13 spots. Here's where you are right now. Here's what you need to do to keep moving up. And then we need to celebrate each other. That's the biggest thing is, we're all trying to get, the chance to play and impact, but we also are all here because we want the chance to win and win big. And so part of that is you are going to, every single guy, Coach Musselman, to me, to our staff, to the players, will sacrifice something so that we can hopefully win at a high rate like we did last year, like that group did. And again, this year is a brand new group, but they have to do the same thing in terms of the sacrifice of some of their individual game.
And now, taking all that talent, obviously you're charting everything and telling them what they need to do, but it's different when you're going against each other all the time. It's helpful when you have so much talent, of course, but it doesn't quite compare to a live opponent. How good was the European tour for this team on and off the court? Developing chemistry and stuff.
Yeah, I think whenever you're on a plane for 9 hours or whatever we were, and you're coming back, and then you're on the buses for another 2 or 3 hours each day, and you're taking tour, all those things, that's where you become close. That's where stuff that you don't even know, where you're bonding. That's where it happens when you're sitting at a restaurant waiting for your meal. So that's invaluable. We had one of those trips at Nevada for our Sweet 16 team, and I felt like at the end of the year we were as connected as anybody, and again able to bounce back from losses faster, more together. But I think the games themselves, what it did was they got used to how intense we are, how every possession matters for us, the style of play that we want to play, how hard they have to play. Some guys were really ready for it. Some were not. Some had to kind of say, wow, okay, I need to get better in this area. So for us, it was a great measuring stick. At the same time, though, it's just a small piece of it. It's like a live scrimmage here. I think it's another piece of that statistical data. And it also allows us to see how they handle some pressure of a live game. And again, what type of teammate are they when maybe they don't play as many minutes or they are playing? So it's a great measuring stick. It's another great experience that hopefully, like I said, January, February, March, it's that extra game that other teams didn't get that can hopefully help us for their confidence and our game confidence.
And, because the forward exhibitions are only allowed every 4 years, you get extra practices that come along with that. How important were those extra days in the gym for such a young team?
Those are the biggest things. The practices, where you're building habits. Not maybe the guys might say, well, we like the games. Wish we had 10 more, games. But I think what they will see is it's just the one or two habits that we're going to need in a big game. The things that you get to practice then, you have a head start. They know our verbiage better now. They know the expectation. They know what we do, and it gives you just that extra time to be on the floor with them, to see how they handle it, a full practice, so that when we went into the start of practice this year, they're used to a regular hour and a half or 2 hour practice with film, and that's the biggest thing, the mental preparation for what was coming in practice. And now as you get into the season, you start scouting, so it's a different type of practice. That's a training camp, but really we're still in training camp heading into our our first game. And like I said, the guys sometimes don't like to hear that, but for us, we don't feel like we're in game mode until we play that first real official game on November 7th.
So the team went undefeated in Spain and Italy, and for all intents and purposes, really didn't run into a ton of competition. What do you think was the biggest takeaway from the European tour?
I think the biggest thing was, we played against some older guys. It'd be like you're playing outdoor, at the park in your local, where you live in your city here, or the health club. And I think with all of us that grew up in basketball, you learn when you play against a more mature player, they have some of those tricks of the trade. They're slapping from behind. We were a little bit loose with the ball. You saw our turnovers, and those guys were really, they kind of opened our eyes to, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Devo Davis, it's a third-year returner. It doesn't matter if you're Nick Smith, Anthony Black, if you're Darian Ford, Jalen Graham. Everybody's going to be ready to play. There is definitely a bullseye in your back, especially right now with the top 10 ranking. So being prepared to play, that was our first taste of, wow, and that buzzer, sounds, it doesn't matter who we are, it matters how we play. And you got to produce every time you walk out there. You got to play your minutes. So I think those guys were definitely got a little bit of a wake-up call to, hey, we got to go every time. And people know who we are, even though we may not know who they are.
And from the end of the European tour, you made the trip back home and we're kind of getting ready for the official start of the season with official practices and stuff. What kind of went on between coming home from the European trip and then up to the red white game?
They get a little bit of a break, so they're gone for a little bit. It's kind of cut in half because of that trip. So they get to do that. Then we're right back into it. To be quite honest with you, when school starts, but we're going probably at a faster pace. We already have some of the base, thing, culture, DNA, habits that we need to have. So now it's going to that next level, which is, out of offensive. That's what we're really looking for. Not just having them in, but now perfecting, that piece of it. Defensively, it's probably adding a little bit of wrinkles. With this team, we can play a little bit differently defensively. We have some more length. But really, that's training camp. You have your 8-hour weeks for a segment, so 4 on the court, 4 off the court, and then you get into your 20-hour segment, which is essentially, full practice. And then again, that's broken up with the red-white scrimmage, and now as you get into exhibition games. So with that, now you're starting to, get a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But I will say in September, that really could be called something like the first dog days of college basketball, because you don't have a game in sight. It's really just practice working on your game. And so at that point, it's still individual development, watching more film. And we really took that Spain trip and really dug into a certain piece of those games every time, whether it's turnovers, blocking shots, our weak side help. We took a piece of that every day, studied it, and kind of implemented, some drills with that every single day in practice.
The red white game was the first time fans actually got to experience this team live, except for some of the fans who actually made the trip over to Europe. What did you think about the performance in the red white game and the overall atmosphere in Bud Walton?
I actually thought it was great. I think at any time, I think on a Sunday when you can get the fans out there on a weekend when football's not in town, it's so fun to see fans wanting to get out and just see. For us, it's like it's truly like an inter squad scrimmage, and to see the fans, that excited about it. If you're one of our players, I mean, you can't be more excited about what's coming into Bud Walton. But for us, I thought it was really good in terms of seeing people step up. We had certain players that were not afraid of the lights, and being our first home game, let's say, we had some guys step up that hadn't played especially well or hadn't produced at that level. So it was great to see some of these guys, emerge and make some plays. At the same time, it showed us what some guys could do. And then our question is, why are they not doing that every single day? So again, it's a great measuring stick. And like we always say, you can't just show up when the lights are on, because again, that's gonna lower your value when you get to that game. What can you really do if you're playing great in practice every single day? And so we're trying to get these guys to be consistent. But it was an awesome experience. I think for a staff too, it allows you to see how these guys react to a crowd. And again, I thought our fans were awesome.
So now through 2 exhibitions, 1 win and 1 loss, obviously they don't count towards the official record at all. But what were you and the coaching staff kind of hoping to see from those 2 games?
Well, just again, carryover. And that's one thing, we do a lot of drill work, station work to try to help them understand the technique, the talk, the verbiage that you need to be great. And then when you get out there in an exhibition game versus Rogers State in Texas, now you have to show that you can carry it over. And so we carried over some things really well. And then again, like, you saw in the stats and in the game and against Texas, some of those things that don't show up in the stat sheet, which hustle plays, loose balls, toughness plays, boxing out, those things stood out. And again, those are things that had to be corrected this week going into our first real game. Because if we're not ready to defend, rebound, be tough, at the level that we need to be, and do that every single game. We did it in spurts versus Rogers. We did it in spurts versus Texas. But again, our goal is to play 40 minutes of tough, gritty basketball. And we didn't do that versus Texas, and you could see it in the scoreboard.
Patience and youth have both been talking points about this team over the summer and, echoed again after the Texas game. Do you think that Texas loss was a necessary experience for these young guys to understand, how much more work needs to be done?
We never, again, here with Coach Musk, we never want a loss to be something that has to happen. And again, I think that the thing that we were disappointed in at the end was maybe it's stretching out a little bit. But for us, it showed us things that we have to get better at. It showed us things that we have to make sure, our rebounding was not where it needed to be. And again, something that reared its head again was turnovers. And so if you're going to throw the ball away, that many times to a team that's that veteran, that's that ready to play, you're not going to have success. It doesn't matter who we play. If we would have turned it over 25 times versus Rogers, it would have been a tough game and a closer game. So, you have certain things you have to get better at. I think that shot selection is something as well, finishing around the rim. And so for us, that's why you play those games, and that's why we decided to go on the road, which most teams would not do. Go on the road to Texas first night in their new arena, which was a great experience for us. But we wanted to get thrown into it and feel what a future SEC environment will be like, on their home court and really see what we're all about and where we are. And we definitely saw that. But I do think that going into it with our rotation being different going into the next game, I'm hoping that our guys will be more dialed in and focus on the little things.
Season begins Monday. There are 3 games at home before you go to Maui, and obviously still room for improvement. You never want to stop improving throughout the entire season. But this early on with this roster, do you like where the team is kind of at this current moment?
Really like it. And the reason being is I think there's so much developing still going on as we speak from day to day individually. We have 3 games at home that are all going to be extremely tough versus veteran teams. And then you go to Maui, obviously that's the biggest challenge you can be in early in a college basketball season. But the thing about this team right now is I think they're very realistic right now with, hey, this is where we're at. And they still have great confidence in themselves because they're really good competitors and they're really talented. We did not play our A game in this game. And it's a great learning lesson to how do we play our A game for 30, 31, hopefully way more than that down the road. And again, I think they're excited about the challenge. But I do think that right now we're in a really good place. But again, coming off a game where we lose, I can never say we're in a great place in terms of how we feel, which is a good thing. I think sometimes you have to be able to battle back, and we're going to see, how tough we are coming back out on Monday versus a really good North Dakota State team.
And you mentioned a lot of your non-conference games, at least these first 3 are against veteran teams. I was looking at the non-conference schedule, doing my kind of breakdown of the schedule, and it looks like most of these non-conference, whether they're mid-major, low-major teams, most of them are projected to finish in the top 3 or at the worst top half of their conference. What kind of goes into the process of making these schedules? Is that something that y'all look for, these veteran quality mid-majors?
I think the one thing, and Coach Ruda and Coach Musk, do a great job with the scheduling piece of it, is finding a team that can possibly be a team that's an NCAA tournament team. As many teams like that you can possibly play early on in the season only prepare you. At Arkansas, we're not afraid to play anybody. I think sometimes when you look at a piece of paper and it says this school, and this school, maybe it doesn't jump out to you because of the name of the school. But as we know, in March, those names, an example like a couple years back, an Oral Roberts suddenly makes a run in an NCAA tournament, where in the preseason, maybe they weren't picked as high. So we have great respect for the teams on our schedule, but we also do a ton of research as to, what is their tradition? And are they, winning at a high level in the last 7 to 10 years? Obviously what players do they have returning? Like a North Dakota State team that has a star player returning. You look for those different things so that it's a quality opponent down the road. So your strength of schedule is strong, your net, all those different things go into it. And then also, something that, people don't talk about enough is probably this, do the fans want to come out and watch this team play, right? And is it something that gets them excited? And you can't, make everybody happy with that, but we want to bring in a quality opponent that makes us better, and also style of play. So, are they really solid defensively? Does this team junk it up? Does this team play a certain pace that allows us, again, to go against different styles of play leading into like a Maui, where you're going to play 3 different teams on 3 straight nights?
My next question was actually about Maui. You start with a matchup against Louisville, and then you move to one of either Texas Tech or Creighton. And from there, all outcome based. Pretty salty field top to bottom. San Diego State's there, Arizona's there, some other quality teams. What's the approach and preparation been like for that? And are the guys excited to start out of the gate essentially against such strong competition?
Yeah, I think they have such blinders on in a positive way. And I think that's something that we try to focus on. Is they're focused on North Dakota State, our first game, 110%. We haven't even talked about that. But we have talked to them about each game building to lead to, just like at the end of the season, as we build through the season, we have to be at a certain level to go against a team like, let's say, Louisville in our first game. And if we haven't improved from November 7th to whatever that date is, I think November 21st in those 3 weeks, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. But as we build to that, they are definitely really excited. And to go and to be in the field with the best teams in America, like you just said, we didn't even talk about Ohio State and Cincinnati on the other side of it. So there's no team that, doesn't have a chance to make a run right now on paper in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, Louisville has great tradition, a new head coach with SEC, bloodlines in terms of Coach Payne. So we're really excited. And for us to be able to represent the program, it'll be the most watched day of basketball in that first game day to the championship. So we want that spotlight. Our guys are really excited about it. And I think for a young team that wants to make a great run this season, you need those challenges. But I go back to, we're going to have a huge challenge on Monday night, November 7th, with our first home game to be able to play really well and really tough defensively.
You get a rematch in Tulsa against Oklahoma this year. Coaching staff, Kamani, Devo were all a part of the loss last year. Is the approach there is it just another game on the schedule, another normal game against a tough opponent, or is there any mention of last year at all?
I think there's always a mention, and there's a feeling for especially Kamani, Devo, our other returners in Lawson and Cade, and for our staff that was there always is, because we have a bad taste in our mouth and how we competed that day early on in the season. That was one of the first times that we had felt that feeling of not being us, or we saw some of the things that we needed to get better at. So there will definitely be a little bit of talk of you're on the road, right? You're not at your home spot. Both teams are at a neutral site, but it's in the state of Oklahoma. So are you prepared to play a team of that level that's going to be coming into our league soon? So there's a lot of added things that go into that. And then plus, like we've gone against Coach Moser's teams in the past, being in the NCAA tournament. We played at Loyola Chicago when we were at Nevada. And so we have a history of playing against them and competing. So we have great respect for them. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge game for us. And we need to play much better in that location than we did last year. And so, yeah, we're excited. I'm excited to get back there and try to, play our style of play early on in the season and have a much better outcome.
You do a tough Baylor team for the SEC Big 12 Challenge. You're headed to Waco in the middle of conference play for that, which conference play is always going to be difficult in the SEC too. You look at that matchup objectively, Arkansas-Baylor, probably one of the top non-conference matchups in the country this year. What are the thoughts and feelings about that game from players and staff both?
You just brought up a lot of games now, so now you're getting us all worried over here, right? We got when you mentioned the schedule, and I think everybody, needs to talk about how big of a game that will be. Obviously, we have great respect for Coach Drew, his staff, and their players, knowing them really well from the recruiting trail. It's going to be an awesome game. As good a road game that we can possibly play. So to have that going on, like you said, during league play, again, it just highlights another crazy, tough, exciting game for us. But as you build and you're going into February, going into that game, you have to be playing your best basketball. So like we did last year, we had a stretch there in February where we were as good as anybody and knocked off some really, really tough opponents. So that's where we need to be, not peaking, but getting to that point where you're almost in that peak mode, like we felt like we did, at the tail end in March. And so that's who you have to play if you want to be one of the best. And again, I think it gives great respect to our program that they match us up against a team like Baylor on the road. And that's obviously coming off a couple of years from a national championship and one of the best teams always in the Big 12.
You're coming off back-to-back Elite Eights, signed one of the best recruiting classes in the country and in program history. There's a lot of hype surrounding this team and the program's trajectory in general. How do you guys manage that? Do you embrace the hype or kind of keep your head down and work?
For sure, keep your head down and work. But we will say we definitely look at it and say, this is where we're going as a program. And there's a positive trajectory, whether it's, working on the recruiting trail, whether it's, what's gone on the past 2 years with the records and the wins. But at the same time, I think it's making sure that everybody understands you have to produce on the biggest stage when you get to this level. And we've gone through it as a staff. Coach has now gone through it here at Nevada. Well, we were, again, we've been, in this spotlight. Even in Nevada, got as high as number 5 in our last season there. We were in the top 10 for 17 straight weeks. So we've experienced it. I think a big piece of it too is you have to enjoy it. Not so much the accolades of what come prior to the season, but you got to enjoy preparing. We want to walk down the practice, court today and be excited to be down there with the guys. And that's what they have to understand is it's going to be very fleeting. When we start on November 7th, the season just goes by like that. And we always say, like, something you look up, you're in March, and whether you win or lose at the very end, it goes so quick. So you definitely have to manage expectations with everybody. They have to understand that it's game by game. You have to be a great, great college player and college team to have anything down the road ever happen for you in a program. So we understand that what happened last year, making Elite Eight, does not guarantee anything happening this year. It's about productivity. It's about preparing. And then really comes back to who we are. Like, if we're going to be good, Coach Musselman's teams, they're really feisty on defense. We need to be a top 10 team defensively. Again, shot selection, not turning the ball over. And then again, just playing with that passion that I think we all know Coach exudes on that sideline. We have to be, we have to be an extension of that. And that's what we're looking for with this team right now. And I think you saw that later on with our team last year was complete buy-in to the tough scrappiness. But we really had to get our back put against the wall to battle out. We're hoping with this team, they can start off quickly and then see where we can really go and have an even faster trajectory. But again, we have to bounce back from how we played last week.
Last thing before I let you go, I know you got a busy day ahead of you, got to get in the practice facility, all that sort of stuff. If you had one message to give to Razorback fans ahead of this season, what would it be?
Just have great support for these young guys, because I do think this is a team that you're going to be able to wrap your hands around, your arms around, in terms of like enjoy watching them. They do have great personalities, great passion. I think what you have to prepare yourself is for a team that to start the season that will not be its best version of itself. That will be at the very end, which all of Coach's teams have been. But the one thing that this state and this region and this city and Razorback fans are is there's nobody better. Like, I was amazed coming here, going through last season, and they really helped us and willed us to wins at the end of the year. Like, that's not a fake thing. When you walk into Bud Walton last year versus an Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU, they help us win. So we need you guys to help us win again in terms of your belief, passion, and then also support of players, and really, supporting them as they go through this journey. Because again, this is a hardworking group, and they're so excited to play in front of a packed house and to, hopefully be able to play late in the season.
All right. Patience, Razorback fans, support, enjoy the season. Coach, I really appreciate you hopping on here, taking time out of your day. Really appreciate it.
Oh, this is awesome, man. I can't wait. Hopefully we can do it more often than not. I'm the first inaugural, so I'm fired up. I go down in the Hall of Fame here. But thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Again, I'm Jackson Collier, JC Hoops. This is the Hardwood Hogs podcast. See you next time.